Hello guys, today I would like to show you how to use components in the React and also how to manage communication between them. Also, I would like to say a few things about the component state and also about props. As you can see, my application is already running. I am using Yarn and the page is blank for now because I deleted all the stuff from the app.js component. This is main component of our application, and of course it is already created if you are using tools such as Create React App. So as you can see, component is basically the JavaScript class which one extends the component from the React library. Right now our class or component has only one method which is called render, and inside of this method, we are returning a view. This view is using JSX syntax, which is combination of HTML, XML, and also JavaScript. You can see that it is not a regular HTML because in the HTML we don't have something that is called class name attribute. We have only class, right? Last thing that is worth to mention that we have to export our component outside, so it will be visible. Okay, so now let's try to display something on our page. So let's go over here and let's type h1. And now if we hit the Control spacebar, we have no suggestions. And this is because Visual Studio Code by default is supporting plain JavaScript for the JS files. So we have to go over here and we have to click the configure file association for JS. So we click it and now we are start typing JavaScript and we are selecting JavaScript React. Okay, and now as you can see, this has been changed to JavaScript React. Okay, so let's go back to the H1, and now if we press Ctrl spacebar, we have suggestions for the H1. And let's type hello React. Okay, and let's save it. And after a moment, we have the string on our page. One more thing to keep in mind while we are working with React is that we can return only one container like this. We cannot do something like this. So we have two, let's say, siblings next to each other. And now if we save it, we will get the error because we cannot return more than one container. So let's delete it and let's save it. Now let's create new component. So first we will create the component directory for all of our components. So we create components inside of the source folder, and inside let's create another folder. Let's say it will be child, and inside let's create a file that will be child.js. Okay, so we don't want to type everything, so we will copy this and paste over here. Okay, now let's clean it a little bit so we don't need this import. Also, we want to change the name of our component to the child. And also we want to export child, not app. And also we want to delete this class name here. Okay, so let's save it. Okay, then we will also change the h1 tag to h2. And we will change the string to something like hello, I'm child. So we will know that this comes from the child component, right? Okay, so now let's say we want to display our child component inside of the app component. To do this, we have to go back to our app.js component, and over here, in the first place, we have to import our child component. So let's go to the top, and we have to type import child from, and we are starting here. We want to go to the components, and we want to go to the child, and also we have to provide the name of our component like this. Okay, so child component is now imported, and now to use it, let's go under the h1 tag, and we have to simply type child, and it will be the self-enclosing tag. So we type slash. And now if we save it, we can see that string from the child appeared. So far so good. Now we will pass some data from the app component to the child component. Let's say we want to pass greeting to the child component. So we will type the name greeting, and this will be available in the child component as the props. And let's say we will pass string, and it will be from parent. Okay, let's save it. Now let's move to the child component, and over here between h2 tags, let's create small tag. Now we want to use interpolation, so we use curly braces. And now we have to access our child component by using this. And every React component has property that is called props. So we have to type props. And inside of this property, we have access to the greeting variable, which one we have passed from the parent component. So now if we save it, our string from the parent appeared. We can pass like this a lot more properties, and they all will be available in the child in this props property. So now let's do it from the other way. So we will pass the data from the child to the parent. Let's say in the child component we will have input, and when we will be typing in this input, this part of the greeting will be updated in the parent component. So let's do it. First thing we need is the input itself. So let's go under the h2 tag and let's type input. As you can see, it is self-enclosing tag already. So now let's save it. And as you can see, we have the input and we can type over here. Okay. Now, of course, we have to somehow access and store data from this input. To do it, we need something that is called state of the component. And to define state, we need constructor. So we go over here and we type constructor. Like this. Since we are passing properties to our child component, our constructor should have props parameter. And also at the beginning, we should call the super method with the props. Okay. As you can see, we have warning over here that says our constructor is useless. This is because if you are extending classes, you have to call the super method in the constructor. And also, if you want to have the access to the props property, you have to pass it in the constructor and the super. But this is the default behavior, and that is why we have the warning. Now let's get rid of this by defining state. So we type this state, and state is basically the object with the properties. And our state property will be input value. And we want to assign to it empty string. Now we can assign this state input value to the value attribute of our input. So we type value equal sign curly braces. And inside we want to refer to our component. So we type this. Now we want to access state and the property from the state that is called input value. Now we can save it. And if we want to type something in the input, we can't. This is because something that is called controlled components in the React. In other words, that means the state is the single source of the true for the component. And to change the state, we have to do this explicitly by calling the setState method. So first, let's define a method that will be responsible of updating the state on every keystroke. So we go over here and let's type handle change. So this is the name of our method. Okay, let's format it a little bit. Our method, of course, will be accepting the event argument. And now inside our method, we want to call this setState method. SetState method accepts object, and inside of this object we want to type input value because this is the property from our state. And now we want to assign a new value, and to do it we have to use event argument, access target, and value of this target. We have to do one more thing to make it work, and it is assigning this context to this method, because otherwise we cannot change the state of the component. That is because JavaScript functions are creating their own context of this keyword. So we have to go to the constructor and use this handle change to access our method. And now we do exactly the same, but now at the end we want to use bind method and pass this context. So now we are saving it. I forgot one thing. We have also to assign our method to onChange event of our input. So we go to the input, we type onChange, and now we are assigning our method to the onChange event. And now let's save it. Now we can finally go to the web browser and let's try it. And as you can see, our input is working now. Okay. Let's do one more test. So at the bottom of our handle change method, we will add console log and we will display our state like this. So let's open the console in the web browser. And now, as you can see, on every keystroke, our state is updated. Okay. Now we can delete this console log and save it. Okay, so now we can move to the app component, and over here we also need to define constructor with the state. Let's move to the top of our app component class, and over here we type constructor. As you can see, we don't have to define props parameter in the constructor, but we have to call super method. Now let's define state. So we type this keyword state, and we are assigning object with the greeting parent property, and we are assigning empty string to it. Now let's refer to this state in our h1 tag. So let's clear this. And now in the curly braces, we want to refer to this component state, and we want to access greeting parent property. So let's save it. And we have only hello because this string is empty. Now we need function which one will handle changing the state of our greeting. So let's say it will be handle greeting change. Okay. This function will receive string with new greeting from the child. So let's say it will be new greeting parameter. Okay. And in the body of our method, we want to set new state. So we call this setState. and it accepts object, and we want to change the state of our greeting parent property, and we want to assign to it new greeting. Okay, so we are handling state change, and now we can pass our handle greeting change method to the child component. So we go to the child tag, and in the child component, let's name our method update parent greeting, and we want to assign to it this handle greeting change. What will happen? This method from the parent will be passed to the child as the property and will be available under this name over here. So let's save it and let's move to the child. In the child, all we have to do is calling the method we just passed. So we go at the bottom of the handle change method, and by using these props, we can access our method. And let's copy the name of it. Goes like this. And now we have to pass the value from the input, which is in the state. So we refer this state dot input value. Now let's save it. We have to go back for a moment to the app component because I forgot one thing. We are not binding this context of our component to the handle greeting change method, so we will get error over here. So we have to do the same what we did in the child component. So we are referring our method and we have to call on it bind method with this argument. Okay, and now we can save it. Now let's go to the web browser, and if we start typing, as you can see, text is appearing in the parent component from the child input. But you can notice that I have typed word exclamation mark, but this exclamation mark is missing. And that is because setState method is asynchronous. So to make it work, we have to go back to the child component, and over here we can pass as the second argument of the setState method a callback function like this. And inside of this callback function, we can be sure that the state is already up to date. So we will move the call of update parent greeting method to this callback function. Okay, so let's save it. And now if we are start typing, the string is updated as we wanted. Okay, so guys, this is all for today. I hope you learned something about communication between components in React. And remember about liking the video and subscribing to channel. See you next time.